last week, Chandra had shared some insights into the cybersecurity domains and the different roles and the different responsibilities across a security team, whether it be a large team in a large enterprise running a large 24/7 security operations center, or an IT team at a mid-market company, or an MSP or MSSP providing managed security services. And when you look across the landscape of cybersecurity solutions that are available in the market today, you'll see that there's a great number of vendors that are producing software solutions or platforms, and in many cases, very narrowly focused point solutions. So you may be familiar with one of the most popular landscape views of the market. This is by a VC firm called Momentum Cyber. And I think if you just type Cyberscape in Google, you'll find their website. And they have many versions of this. Obviously, it gets updated quite often. But this is their view of all of the vendors across the cybersecurity space. And what you see here is 19 different primary domains, whether it be risk and compliance solutions, cloud security solutions, or application security solutions. And then inside of all of those domains and requirements that many organizations have, you'll see that there's sub solutions such as web application firewall and application security, which is quite different from testing applications while they're being developed. It's quite popular these days to have solutions for software development teams for supply chain security. But as you can see, the market is very dynamic. There are quite a few vendors that cross multiple domains and multiple subcategories here. But this is the heart of the issue, right? If we think about each of these solutions, they all require deployments, training, documentation, integrations with existing platforms, integrations with new platforms that are brought in. And then there's the licensing and the calculations required in order to ensure that licensing is being done properly. On top of that, there's agents that need to be managed and updated, and things can get very, very complicated. And this is the reality for many security teams today. And this is what we talk about in the market when we talk about consolidating, when we talk about the opportunity to follow the attack chain from the very moment that there's an attempt made to intrude into a network, into an endpoint, into a cloud environment, or a cloud resource, or an identity that's been compromised. And the real key here is for teams to be able to correlate and follow that attack path from the very beginning. Maybe on the left, if you can visualize an attack getting started, to the point where it's detected, but how does it correlate? Which device, which branch office, which infrastructure was affected? And then, how is it mitigated? How is the response handled? And then on the other side, how does the audit look? How can a security team prove to an insurance auditor or compliance officer how the attack happened, how it spread, east, west, across the attack surface and beyond? And this is the biggest problem that security teams are faced with today. They have too many solutions. Many times those solutions are no longer relevant today, right? Attacks have changed. Many of these organizations have been acquired, or they're no longer being actively developed. And then you have issues where you've got blind spots and gaps in your coverage, gaps in your ability to not just detect and respond, but correlate across all the infrastructure, all the identities, the endpoints, the cloud environments, Active Directory and beyond. And this is an opportunity that Seceon focuses quite a bit on, is understanding where um, those gaps are and how to help organizations close those gaps and have much better correlation and situational awareness so that they can make the right decisions and understand where the attack came from. So, we made this graphic here, a quick look. If you know anything about Seceon, it's a great platform for real-time detection and response. And on the left, we just talked about ingesting, right? Ingesting raw logs, flows, identities, events, and alerts from infrastructure, from applications, from cloud environments, and then, enriching it and using machine learning and AI to detect indicators of compromise, indicators of behavior that, are, just indicative of malware, ransomware, identity theft, and beyond. And then responding in an automated fashion. And when we think about Seceon, we think a lot about how we can help teams consolidate their stacks, their EDR, their network detection and response, their file integrity monitoring, their threat intelligence and vulnerability analysis, their ability to use behavioral analysis across networks and endpoints, their SIM platforms, their ability to orchestrate automation, and at the end of the day, producing those risk scores and answering the questions that compliance and risk teams have. And the real magic happens when you could see everything, you're able to detect in real time, respond in real time, and then be able to diagnose exactly what happened from left to right, maybe using the MITRE attack framework as a template for understanding the attack. So we believe that a lot of teams in 2024 will continue their drive to modernize their solutions, move away from point solutions, right? We see that there's hundreds of point solutions that are not integrated, are hard to manage, hard to license, hard 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 to train, hard to keep updated, and then move forward with a modern platform that enables a consolidated approach. I think, Chandra, that was what I had to share, and maybe you have some feedback and comments on that.
Yeah, no, thanks, William, for sharing that. And definitely, I'm pretty sure there will be some questions coming up as well. And then we'll probably ask some question with the audience as well, because we might have some poll and all that. One thing I do wanted to share, because as William pointed out, that when you are doing cybersecurity, it's really critical to not try to limit the data you want to bring in, because sometimes people will say that, hey, I don't want to have too much data coming in and all that. Data is something where you can derive a lot of value from. You can see all the activities which are happening, context with any of the host user application services, which helps you deduplicate if there is some duplicate data, which there is a good chance that you will get that if you are doing the data ingest from everywhere. And then also filter out the noise and then start adding the learning for the context and situational awareness. More the data you have these days, if you have a right platform in the place, that platform is able to derive significant amount of intelligence from it, and which can be used for the context and situational awareness. One of the other key thing is, which we want to point out, that when you are consolidating your security stack, because if you had a lot of budget, you would have over the years bought 30, 50. There are some company which have 200 plus product in the place. And now everyone have come to realize that having all those product individually, they might see that, hey, I'm doing a great job, but from the bigger picture, from the organization point of view, their value is not a really significant value they are adding from the organization's cybersecurity point of view. And reason being it, all of their tools have a limited context. And even if you get those, like let's say if you have 10 tools to run, on average, mostly there is a study done that people are running around 19 products, security product in the organization. If you have 19 products and you have a team associated with them trying to run it, and then this is like not really a good way to pull it all together. So there is a lot of discussion. When we started our company more than 8 years back, we said that, hey, you have to have a common context. There has to be consolidated kind of like, cybersecurity stack. It cannot be distributed, but now industry has started talking. If you look into any of the industry or even the cybersecurity leaders, they're saying that, hey, we have to collapse the stack. And then also you got to have a security mesh. And what does it mean? Is there are hygiene products in there, there are monitoring products, analytics, security analytics, and all that. They all have to work together. If they are not working together, you are not going to get a good value out of your solution as well. So it's always critical to bring them together. And that's a security mesh you have to create to get the best ROI on your investment of any tool. If you are buying a hygiene tool which does not have way of giving the data, and you don't have a platform which can take the data and keep it for a long period of time, you can have a best firewall, but if the firewall does not have any context in there, it is making a decision in the real time, whether it's a good, bad, ugly, and deciding whether to let it in or not, and all that in there, or let it go out. That's not going to help you a lot. Say it does whatever it had, the like signatures and all that, or policy set up on there. But beyond that, things are not constant. A lot of things are changing. So it's really critical to have that security mesh as well. And that's something we want to point out, that if you don't have a security mesh where the things are not coming together, and then also, even though there had been a lot of discussion about, it's like security orchestration, remediations, and all that in there, if they are not integrated to apply the policy directly on your hygiene system and keep on improving your cybersecurity posture, there's a lot of talk, but that talk is not going to help. So that's something you always want to kind of consider, that when you are looking for a solution, look for a solution which have the capability to create the security mesh, or it is part of a security mesh for your organization. If it is not, it is not going, its value add is going to be limited. So that's something we wanted to share with you. Okay. And then definitely from the consolidation point of view, security stack calls consolidation point of view, you want to make sure that more the consolidation you have, better it is for you to have a kind of like that kind of a solution, because it gives you common context and situational awareness. One of the things you always want to be aware of, because there are a real platform, and then there are fake platform, and which they call it cosmetic platform. There is a lot of discussion about those cosmetic platform out there, but people don't kind of say that way. But those who have a deeper understanding, they can understand. So in the cosmetic integration age, that somebody has like 20 different kind of products in there, and then they will say, oh, I will just go and do API call whenever I need to do the pull the data. The challenge is in those cosmetic integrations, they make you look like, hey, you are integrated, but actually you are not. The reason is basically that you do not have a common context. If you have a firewall which is have a lot going on, it might have its log rolling out every 15 minutes. If you are not keeping that data for that months and months and years and creating a context, things may be lost after 15 minutes. What that kind of integration looks like. Similarly, you might have some other product in there. Let's say if you have EDR, and EDR is giving you limited amount of data, of the cooked data, not the raw data, you will not be able to do the a lot of analysis. Where you will have to go? You will have to go into the now the EDR portal to do some analysis, and even there, some of the data will roll over because they cannot keep it forever as well. So you have to keep that in mind. That context is a big problem. If you have a cosmetic integration, your context will be always a problem because you cannot have all the product reporting the incident or IOCs or threat indicator with the same context. Some will report what they just saw right now. They don't have any context of what has happened 3 months back and related to that what is happening right now. And many of the attacks, like you have these ransomware attack or any serious attack, APT and all that, they take their time. It's not that, just like, hey, I just got in and encrypted your couple of machine and go out. Because if you just do that, people are not going to pay big bucks for that ransomware attack. And APT, if it is a state sponsored, they want to come and make a home into your environment and live there for not only for a short period of time. Most of the time their goal is live there, learn about what is going on there, and that can be for multiple months and years and sometimes many years out there. They just live in there and they will probably know more about your organization than you. So yesterday there was something interesting what's going on. We were having some discussion, and I wanted to share the hackers have the like most of the cases, they know more about your organization than you yourself because they have mapped everything. They know exactly what people are communicating, what they are doing, when they are coming, when they are not coming, and all that in there. So they have all that information with the better analytics, and they are learning about it as well. So that way they know when they have to do activity and when they do not have to do activity. So that's something we want to share. So having this consolidations with the common context and situational awareness, and having the security mesh not only to collect the information but also take actions. When you are taking an action to make your cybersecurity better, and that by applying a policies, applying a rule to make sure what can come in and what can not come in and what can go out and all that, that is really critical, that you have to have a security mesh with a real action, not just kind of, hey, I got the data, I got a security mesh. No, it has to be closed loop. It cannot be open loop. That's another thing we wanted to point out. And with that, a lot of theoretical things we have been talking, but what we want to do is we want to also share something real. We want to show you how it is done as well. Once again, you don't have to just use Seceon platform. If you can find any other platform which does this, you can definitely try that one out. But we want to show you how it is done as well. So William, if you don't mind, I can share my screen.
Chandra, there was a question about the threat intel. Where do they find the sources? Threat intel source.
Yeah, so threat intel sources, if you see, there's definitely industry is coordinating quite a bit in there as uh, uh, between the different kind of organizations and companies. There are different groups are there where threat intelligence gets shared that, hey, I saw this. So just to give you idea, we'll give you our own kind of findings. So right now we are doing more than 600 billions events per day. We are kind of like processing those, and multiple thousands of customers, many of them is multiple thousands are even hosted into our place. So you think about that, most of the threats you are seeing it out there when they are getting kind of public and all that, we probably have seen them multiple weeks in advance, sometimes multiple months in advance, that hey, these things are happening out there. And when you get this blacklisted like IP, URL, URI, where those people are coming from, which countries are kind of like being very proactive there on the like trying to breach the account or brute force something in there, who is kind of very active on the Office 365, because SaaS services, you understand that those ones are people always trying to get in there. They probably got some account dumped somewhere. Sometimes they are guessing the organizational like ID structure and using those ID, and then they just go into the dictionary attack and common kind of like password things in there to attack it out. So you can always capture it. So just to give you idea, we pretty much are seeing those ones in there and say, hey, which places they are coming, which like IP, URL or URI. So we have our own threat intelligence being created. On top of that, there are many sources which are government sources are there. So if you are in India itself, India government sources now are even offering the threat intelligence for critical infrastructure, as well as your banking and finance, manufacturing. Similarly, the US has there is many non-profit organization as well where are the alliances where you contribute and then other people are contributing, and then if you contribute also you get the threat intelligence from that as well. So just to give you idea from our point of view, see, no company can say that, hey, they got complete view of the world. Nobody has it. So I'll be the first one to say, no one, even if you go and pay for big money for recorded future and all that in there, they got some of those IP, URL, URI, something there, kind of like also looking into the text and all that in there. All of those things also combined together, still you cannot say that you got everything perfect, updated and all that, because there is a lot of noise as well, because certain things may come and go. It may not be relevant beyond like uh, a week or day or sometimes a month or so. So you also have to clean up. And then certain things is also noisy, nothing happened associated with it. But it's a great question. That threat intelligence is something which comes with the collaborations, and you have to collaborate. You have to give and take, because at the end, threat intelligence is something which is you want to use it to make sure which is known bad is already taken. Now, there is a certain things in the threat intelligence can be like also something you can see that, hey, there's something bad is going to happen, but it is not 100% certain. And it can be noisy because you can say that, hey, there is a DDoS attack is going to happen on, let's say, Indian critical infrastructure, something just like example. Now, The DDoS attack is just like, we had some chatter was going on into a certain forum, which can be dark web or some, it's like secretive forums and all that in there. So what do? You take that and say, okay, we are going to be more vigilant about it. That may happen, may not happen. So you can say, one perspective, you can say that, hey, it didn't happen, so it was just like a false positive and all that. But maybe there was a planning going on, but they said that we will not execute it. So you were able to probably taking proactive actions in there and just making advise we are ready, that you are able to stop that attack as well. That's right. They didn't kind of had enough of infrastructure, because see, when you go DDoS and all that, the attacker also need big amount of infrastructure as well. That's right, to be successful. And that infrastructure costs them as well. That's right. So if you are prepared, then they know that, hey, they will not be able to do much damage. And it's like, hey, it's going to be a big cost. Because at the end, their goal is to do some damage and all that. Damage means like stop you, cripple you, and all that in there. That's right. That was just an example. Any other questions, Anjali, you have?
No, Chandra, no as such.
Okay. So what I was going to show you over here is, let's say if I go into this one, this is like Seceon platform, like MSSP view. There is a view over on top of that, that is called MTMT view. And this is MSSP view. And then also when I go into over here, this is an enterprise view. So if you are an enterprise, you come over here, you are going to see only this. What I was going to show is like, pay just attention into the, are you guys able to see my screen or not? Anybody is able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can see you.
Yes.
Okay. So what I will say is just don't go anywhere, just pay attention to the left side, because what I'm going to point out is some of the things what William was just talking about, but I'll show you that, on the data side, what is important. So if you look into the left side, these two sections is all about real time, like analytics and visualizations of all of your like people, your host, application, services, everything what is happening in over here, all the accounts and all that. This section is what you see threat, and then SOAR and BI. This is all about your proactive detections and automated containment elimination of the threats. And then also your security scorecard, holistic security scorecard. You can build out any compliance framework, or you might have already framework in there. We'll kind of show in that one. But basically that's what it is in over here. This is where why the security team should be appreciated, or as a partner, our MSSP should be appreciated, because they got to show that what they have been doing, As a security expert, you have to say that these are the things I have done, and what is ROI of that investment in the cybersecurity. So you can go and show it to your leadership or show to the customer that these are all things I'm doing it for you, And you see, one of the things I would like to point out, this is where you set the direction, and this is where you show that, hey, I'm kind of looking at everything out there. So let's say if you go over here and say how I'm kind of collecting the data sources, what are my data sources and all that in there. And you should be able to kind of show that, hey, all the things which I'm bringing in there, that's right. One of the key things which I wanted to point out, that, your goal is not to kind of like, just if something has happened, see, this is like always like a balance you have to kind of like make sure of it, because we always talk, we have now it's like more than 400-500 partners who are active right now with the multiple thousand customers, like 7,000 plus customers out there. It is really critical, because when we hear from the partner is at the end, they have to do the balancing act. Balancing act is you do not want a threat to kind of go to the point where it becomes very disruptive. Means like somebody is saying that, hey, I'm always doing incident response and all that in there. And incident response can be, okay, I saw some IOC, I'm taking care of that in there. That's always you should do, because, and you don't want to get to the incident response where like some breach has happened and then you are kind of responding, because that is something you want to avoid. One of the things is, as a security professional, sometimes what happens is if you keep on doing those things again and again, and there are security companies out there, they're very well-known security company out there, they will let the attack go into the last stage, and then they will show that you had an attack and we have detected it. And what end up happening is, as a organizational CEO or the leadership member, you say, oh, they detected it, they did a good job. As a security professional, now you have to question it. Why they did not do very early in the game. So that way it was not a damaging kind of like consequences. If you had a ransomware attack and the attack you are detecting it when the rapid file kind of like access are happening for encryption, and you say you have a ransomware attack in there, that detection is not much meaningful in there. Yesterday I had someone I spent a couple of hours and we were just discussing, and he said that, hey, this is as if, it's like you had a like nuclear kind of like bomb has been kind of like blasted on you, and then you are kind of saying that, hey, now bomb has kind of dropped over here. What is the point of that bomb? Is, if you wanted to have that, you should have done that warning multiple like days in advance or hours in advance that, hey, this is something happening out there, So, and then there are solutions which are just done like that, because they will see that, hey, rapid file action, they'll say, hey, if some extensions are being added, and okay, this is a ransomware attack. That attack, that does that detection has some value? You can say, yeah, I might have little value in there, but not much, because it's too late in the game. So that's something I just wanted to share. But one thing I want to share, that you want to make sure all your data sources you have, they are coming into your platform, because bring the data. Data is something will give you complete perspective of what is happening, and because it will help you create a better context there as well. So that's something, the data sources. The biggest thing about consolidation of the cybersecurity stack is having all the data sources, sending the data, and you are able to have a consolidated view of all the data together and form a context and situational awareness across all the data. You do not want to have a network data on own plane, and then have a like log data in its own plane, then events data as well as your uh, uh, process data on a different plane in there, and then have a different events coming, and then say, okay, human will do the correlation and all that. Because when human has to deal with these hundreds of billions of events, because you see certain organizations, see, we are in our organization itself, we are kind of getting something is like, here you can see 2.31 billion events in there. It's like 17,000 APS and all that. There are deployment we have where these numbers are up to 2.3 million events per second. There are some customer have like 1.35 million events per second. There are some customer who have like 652 EPS per second, 62,000 EPS per second. So those are 6.5 lakhs, So there are some 13 lakhs, some 6.5 lakhs. There are some who are 23 lakhs and all that. So those kind of things you are dealing with. And those over a day and month and all that, they become multiple hundreds of billions out over here. That's right. So that's something you want to be. If I go over here, look into the longer period, let's say over here, that number, if you see, it has gone up to like probably 30 billions or so, just in our environment. But there are bigger environments where you can have that number go pretty big. So human trying to do those correlation is not going to be easy things to do. Okay. And so when you are consolidating your stack, and stack consolidation is not just getting the data, because if you have a single platform which is able to take your raw data, your log flows, identities, your endpoint telemetry processes, and all that in there, your cloud telemetry, what it does, it is going to give you a view of everything together. So your security mess is a real mess. Mess is not a cosmetic mess, because there are a lot of company who are creating the cosmetic mess in there. So create a fake view. We got this fabric, we got this thing is happening all together. But at the end, if you look into the context, they don't have a context. Every product has their own context in there. Okay. With that said, what I wanted to share with you guys, like certain things we wanted to show you over here, that if you look into what we are showing over here on the screen is, how much, thing have been analyzed and all that. I can change this time frame in there. So other thing is also, you want to always have the data, long-term data into your kind of like your fingertip there as well. So that's something I want to make sure that, hey, don't just kind of like get a platform which is showing that what has happened in the last 24 hours or last certain period of time. Should be able to get the context for a long period of time as well. So here, if you look into that, if you're looking it from the traffic analysis point of view, this much traffic can be analyzed. How many private hosts are being monitored in there? How many users, applications are there? How many external communications, and which countries are part of it? And you see these kind of a dashboard, it sounds sometimes very complex, or sometimes people say, I don't want to see this thing. You should have a capability, whatever the platform you're using, there are certain things will be important for you. So you should have a capability to bring what you need and get rid of what you don't kind of like focused on, because you might have a different people need different things. So you can go ahead and delete it. And if you want to add something, one of the things you want to have it, whatever platform you use, you want to make sure it have KPIs for what you want to use. So here, if you look into, there are like 881 KPIs has been given. You can go in and bring whatever you want, because in our organization, there's certain people might be that, hey, I care about my security posture. Other people are working day and night to make sure kill those kind of attack vectors early in the game. So they are dealing with the alerts and taking actions on those. Then there are certain people who care about the compliance. So they are like, hey, I have a NIST framework in a place. I have to be HIPAA compliant. I have to be CMMC2 compliant. I have to be RBI compliant or SEBI compliant. All of those compliant are PCI DSS. You should be able to run a framework and say, you should be able to push a framework and have it kind of come in and say exactly everything we are monitoring. Because at the end, if there is somebody comes to you and say, hey, what you are doing, you should be able to show in seconds or minutes, not taking that, okay, you told me this, I will have data ready like tomorrow or next week, you should come in there. Because that is not what you want to do in the today's world of the digital world in there. So that's something I wanted to share. And as I mentioned that, these dashboard, you can go and add and delete, means there is like more than almost 1,000. As I say that, it's like 43 are already there. There is like 800 plus 81 are still there. And you can add it your own, you can create your own KPI over here and just say that I want to have something else. So you can go and say what I want to see it. One thing I do want you to make sure that you understand, these things had been made easy for the kind of like customer point of view, or anybody who is looking to have a modern kind of like a platform. So that way you yourself are very much is like able to see and do what is kind of really of the importance. There is a lot of things will come as a default. If you're looking for the default, it will come from the platform. But your goal is to make sure that you are showing it to your like audience what is important for them. That's what you want to do. And similarly, some people might be just interested into what is happening into my cloud, whether I have Azure, AWS, or whichever cloud I have, what is happening in there. Some people are looking into endpoint, and then as a security team, you are looking into everything together, because that is really critical that, hey, you look for everything together. So you can customize it, you can create as many dashboard you want, it's up to you. And any of these ones, as I mentioned, that you can click and go into those. See, one of the other thing I want to point out, you see, cloud security is like really more of the organization are going into the cloud. So cloud security is a critical, and it is a really critical to not have a cloud security into different domain altogether. It has to be with a rest of your security. So if you have a cloud, you have a SaaS, you might have some of the endpoint, and you might have some organizational data center and all that. All of those things has to come together. If they are not coming together with the common context, you might have something happening on one side, and that side will just kind of spread over everywhere else. So just to give you guys idea, before this call started, I had a meeting with one of our partner who is managing security for one of the biggest university in the world with the 452,000 students, 40,000 staff. They have our solution deployed, and they were saying that, look, before a Christmas, platform detected a breach. There was a laptop somewhere. Somebody has put a laptop into one of their labs, and that laptop was doing something which basically was definitely bad activities. Okay, so it detected it. They went there with the security staff. They went there and had that, the owner of the lab, it's like some professor director. He come in, it was open, and it was kind of like seen that, hey, what is going on in there? They fixed it. So they are pretty happy with like, hey, what the platform did. But it was just before the Christmas. It was done. And when most of the people are going on the like vacation and all that, that they were using that to kind of collect the information, do the discovery and all that in there. So that was like somebody's laptop. Nobody's kind of, they're investigating who put that laptop in there and what was going on. Mostly, you see, it's not only the ransomware attack, because if you have a critical laboratories, there is a huge amount of intellectual property research going on. So somebody is able to take that intellectual property. Some ransomware you can pay off, and you might have a disruption for a week or whatever you have to do. It might be very costly event for you. But intellectual property going away can be even more costlier. And some of these professors, they do a research which can be like worth billions of dollar if you want to put the value, or it can be even the big prizes, including when Nobel Prize, So those things are invaluable. You cannot put a value to anybody getting those kind of invention done and all that in there, and you don't want those things to be stolen out. In the digital world, there is a possibility of that. So this is something you always want to have everything come together in that context. And it was good that they had the solution in the place and it was able to detect that. And they had to rush the people in there to get, which was the locked laboratory, to get all the professor and staff and security forces to go in and find this place, because it was just like, you are just showing the IP and the host name. Beyond that host name, it was not able to, in this case, there was not even a host name assigned to it as well, so it was just the IP. So they have to go and figure it out. And you understand, if you have this kind of organization, the same IP is getting repeated again and again. So it's like, hey, which particular gateway is giving this the kind of where it is exiting and all that, and that's what identified them to this particular lab we have to go. So those things you always have to be aware about. But you see, the thing is also, as I pointed out, that any of the security, you don't want to keep it in your different plane in there. So whether it's like your cloud security, your endpoint security, looking into the behavior across all of those things should be there, so that whether you are looking for the user behavior or looking for the host behavior, those monitoring has to happen into the single context, and that is really critical. It's like that what you are doing out there. One thing, so as I said, that data consolidation is really critical, that you bring the data from all the sources, and then that helps you get in the real time, but have build the context for the data. And if the context is not that, hey, what I'm saying today, might be context, might be what you have seen 3 months back, 6 months back, or what you saw like 15 days back. The context should not be limited. If you have a multiple different, those cosmetic integration, some product will have a context of a day, some will have a context of right now, just like what is happened right now within a minute or second. And then some might have a context of a 15 days or 10 days or 7 days, or most of those product lack the context. And other thing is, even if those which have the 15 days context and you are trying to get the only data, when you are trying to analyze something, what will happen is, if you are going to go and get the 15 days data from the API call, that API is going to crash and burn, because you cannot get those gobs of kind of gigabyte data into the single kind of a call. So you have to be always aware of that. So that's something we wanted to kind of discuss over here. So today we discussed that, consolidation of the security stack requires all the data collected in the real time, but you are building the context and situational awareness in a platform, and which is a common across all the data sets. So when you go into the alerts, some of the alerts, what you want to do is, see here, there are some origins over there that, hey, how that alert has come. But then some places you'll see the origin where multiple things are coming together. So let's say if you look into this data set, and you don't have to just pay attention to the Seceon, but anywhere, you should be able to see that, hey, this data sources, I have a host network, I have like EDR, I have a machine learning. All of these things are contributing towards this particular alert. When I go inside over here, if I'm looking into all this, see here, some suspicious path is coming in there, suspicious file evasion, privated country access is going on, machine learning saying unusual connection durations in there, new processes. Machine learning is looking at this machine never does this process. Now it is starting a new process. All of a sudden, some network is saying that, hey, this guy is doing a scan. You can also call it, sometimes some people will call a scan as a lateral movement. But because they don't have the data, because if you're trying to do the scan from the single device, from that device point of view, they will say, oh, this is lateral movement. It may not be lateral movement. It might be just discovery, what is happening in the environment there. That's right. You have some black site access, single port scan and all that, some telnet scan. So see, all of these things, as you look into over here, there are, if I combine over here, it looks like around 1600 plus events, 1700 plus events has come together to form this alert. And you see the context. This context had, even though the alert accelerated over here on this day, it had used context data up to like 27th, but the alert came out on the 2nd of the uh, uh, January. You also go in and now you are able to see that, hey, what are all the things are pulling together? If I go over here, that, hey, what are the things came together to accelerate the threats in there? So those are the things you are able to kind of like, if you have a traditional solutions, they will not be able to do these things. So see over here, whatever is happening, your single port scan is happening, your telnet scan is happening. You are able to correlate all these data together from different sources because of the context. You are able to see all the scan it has done and all that in there. What are the MITRE technique IDs and so on and so forth. One of the things we have not done a lot of like discussion yet, and which we'll be doing the next week, we'll focus on into framework. The framework where you have like your NIST 2.0 are coming out in there. They have expanded its kind of capability and all that. So as we discussed last week, the NIST has been doing phenomenal job, but the only thing is nobody puts a platform together to address all that, because as William was pointing out, if as a company, if you are a security company, want to make a quick money in there, what you will do? You will do a niche product, which will do a certain things in there. You will just do a like SOAR product. You say, I'm doing a SOAR, or you will do a SIM product. I'll do that. I'm doing a uh, EDR product, which will have machine learning capability and all that. The thing is, those product you go in, if you say somebody that I'm going to do complete platform, which will do your SIM, your SOAR, your EDR, NDR, your XDR, your EPP, your threat intelligence, and you are trying to get a kind of like somebody to fund you, and they say, you know what, I'm not sure you will be able to do it. And your chance of getting funding is pretty much zero. Because if somebody is saying that, hey, I'm going to kind of like tackle this big problem, they'll say, forget it. There is a chance of this thing happening is low. And that is the fact. If somebody wants to build a platform in there, until unless there are crazy set of the people who really kind of like want to make it happen and all that, and they had enough of the world they have seen, rest of the people will pick up a niche problem, they will solve that and then flip it. They will make good amount of money, and a lot of money sometimes, and they move on to the next thing in there. Now it is another company problem that what they do with it. So, but that does not solve the real world problem. If you want to solve the real world problem, you have to have that, it's like the passion that, hey, we are going to develop something which is going to solve the problem for good. And you see, cybersecurity is one thing I want to make sure. None of us should be in illusion that you will create it once and then you have solved the problem for good. You can't do that. You can create a platform, but that platform always have to have an innovation added into it. You always have to look into what are the other threat vectors you want to detect into early steps and stages. So those are the things are critical, because you don't want to get to the point where people have like discover your asset, collected and exfiltrated it, because that's a too late for the game, you know. So you don't want to get to that point in there, because if they are able to do that, it's like, you know, and you don't want to even also have that unwanted elements are sitting in your organization and you are not able to recognize it. So if you remember, like few years back, when Microsoft, like president in the Senate said that, oh, we had thousands of those, like, you know, threat actors sitting in our environment for a multiple years, and they were seeing everything what was happening in our environment. And then they had also stolen 27 terabyte of code and all that. One side you look into that, you know, he's saying that, hey, look, my detection is not there. I've 1,000 extra people in the organization watching everything, collecting the data, exfiltrating the data, not able to see that. That sounds pretty kind of like, you know, from the security solution point of view, and especially the cybersecurity, because that's these people are not the physically coming in your organization. So that's what if you don't have a monitoring tool which is able to detect those, you definitely have a serious questions to answer that, hey, what I have to do to make sure those things get detected and we don't have this unwanted element sitting into my organization, knowing more than we know about our organization. So that's something you want to kind of like always think about. Okay. Any additional questions, Anjali? Because
Yeah, Chandra.
next week we will discuss quite a bit. There is a lot of things to be done over here. So
Sure.
definitely we have not gone through. There are 4 more sessions in there. So next week we'll start with the nest. We'll get into how these things are coming together. We'll get into some of these not only alert, how you kind of also want to have a solution to take actions on those one, whether it's automated with the playbook. And then also we will cover next week is like proactive detection, automated containment elimination, and then security posture improvement.
Sure,
And we
Chandra.
will cover all the parts of the NIST. We start with that and we'll go into the details on that one, you know. So next week we'll be going through that. So go ahead and ask the questions, Anjali, you have, you know.
Yeah.
Hey,
They asked
Chandra,
one question.
can I make one comment first?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, hey everyone. I would just like to make a request that everyone take a minute while we finish up here and maybe put in the chat what you liked about today's session, you know, what things you didn't like, what you'd like us to do differently, so we can make this as beneficial as possible for you going forward. So if you could just take a couple of minutes to just put comments in there, that'd be very helpful for us. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Another thing is like also what you guys like, what are the things Tom pointed out, what are the things you want us to cover during this series as well? And we will go through those ones as well, you know. Go ahead, Anjali, ask the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So is Seceon XDR, AI XDR has a rollback option if any ransomware attack happens?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And so rollbacks are definitely associated with like, you know, we do not do. So I think the one thing I want to make sure that we do not have a shadow copy to recover your complete platform there. So whatever the endpoint you have, but the rollback we have it, like let's say if we have quarantine a file and that file has to be released and all that, we can release those ones in there. But our rollback for the endpoints, and you see one of the things I want to share, that rollback feature sounds pretty good. If you ask anybody that how many times you have used in there is one vendor who kind of talks a lot about rollback with the shadow copy and all that in there. But if that feature get used, it is a good selling tool, but it does not get used. If you ask like around millions and millions of endpoint, how many has roll it back and all that in there, probably you can count those into the fingers. We have checked with many people in there that, hey, what you are doing? And say people say, no, it's like if something really bad has happened, we wipe out and kind of like we do a reinstall of the images and all that in there. But it's a good feature, but we do not have a rollback of your complete OS reinstall and all that in there, a rebuild of machine. We have a rollback of what has been quarantined. That's what we do, the rollback. And similarly, rollback for your firewalls or anywhere the policies are getting applied, we always allow that rollback in there as well. What we have done, we allow for that. At the OS level, rollback and all that, we do not do right now. And I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. Okay. Anything else, Anjali? Any other
I
question
think,
before
yeah,
we
I think,
conclude? I know that we are 10 minutes over our time. So any other questions?
I think they're asking about the false positive, Chandra. That is how to differentiate a noisy threat and a cyber threat.
Yeah. So we will definitely cover that because I will say, let me discuss a little bit about that. See, one thing which we discuss, transparency. Transparency is very critical. If you have a cybersecurity solution which does not give you transparency that, hey, if there is a alert came out, what is the reason behind that alert? Okay. Many of the industry, if you look into the solution, there are companies which are very kind of like hot company into cybersecurity. They will give you a kind of, hey, we found this power cell in there. You should go and clean up that machine, quarantine that host, clean up that machine. They don't quarantine themselves, but they will send an email that quarantine and clean that machine in there. And that work is done by somebody else. And then how they are coming with that? What they're doing is, if you look into, they don't do much of the security work. They collect the telemetry. They are collecting the telemetry, your events. They are collecting from those endpoints in there because they have agent. And then they are looking into what are the things going around the world with the, threat intelligence being discussed. And then they search those power cells, that which power cell, mostly working on the Windows. So they will search on the power cell. Okay, this power cells is really kind of like active out there. There are thousands of power cells. Some power cells get used all the time, as you know. And even organization is, most of those Windows people where they are doing the automations or many of work is power cell is very common. But some of those bad ones, they will find and say, okay, hey, this organization, I saw something today. And so their goal is to once in a month have like 3, 4, 5 things for your organization, send it out and say, hey, this is what we want to do. What is the reason behind it? What are all the things I have correlated to give you that data? They will not give you. They will say, this is our trade secret. I will never give you that. So, but at the end, there is a nothing called trade secret because they are just looking into what are those bad power cells are there, what is their signatures and all that, MD5 and so on. They are doing the search. That's what is going on. Now, to answer your question, the transparency, when you have a Seceon kind of a platform, remember I showed you that when you have a threat indicator or alert in there, that alert shows what has gone behind it to make that alert possible. That's right. So you see over here, this is showing, this is one of the Seceon implies, is showing that, hey, he is coming from a IP which has been reported as like a, what do you call, is a dubious IP. So you see here, it is coming that, hey, he's coming from a IP and he's doing the SSL VPN from there, and it is considered as a dubious IP out there. So that's what it's like, it's a malicious IP. Now, you see that what we can do is we can say, okay, this person is coming from malicious IP, it is a false positive in there because that IP has been marked by a threat intelligence as a malicious IP in there. That's right. But at the same time, we know that this is our real employee who is coming from there. So now two ways you can look into it. One way we can look into it, hey, this is a false positive and I do not want to see this thing again. That's right. Other way to look into it, yeah, it is a false positive. We are watching it. But anything else beyond that goes on because he comes with the VPN, he does his work, he's kind of like working on certain things. Tomorrow, somebody else may come on his behalf in there, but not from the same location, maybe from some other locations in there, but that might be also dubious IP. Platform is also learning his behavior, have learned his behavior. Something goes off, it will just immediately goes alert. So sometimes you do want to see certain things which are the fact. The fact you can decide that whether I want to see this thing or I do not want to see. We can go in and see over here. We can say that, hey, this is a trusted threat indicator, and we can go ahead and say that, you know what, going forward, I want to trust this thing. That's right. And when you say that I want to trust it, so let's say take a actions over here. When I go into over here and I say that, you know what, I'm going to trust a actions on this thing that next time onward, I want to trust this thing. Once I create that trust and say, okay, it will still keep a record of it, but it will not generate an alert. Now, the key point is, what you want to do is, certain times, if somebody is doing a file transfer, and you can say that this file transfer, Seceon platform will show that, hey, A and B and C are a person A did, Chandra did a, like, let's say 100 gig of file transfer today. This 100 gig of file transfer today, say, yeah, it was like, it's like, it was certain things was going on. It has to be done and all that. But do you want to know or you don't want to know that? You can say, you know what? I don't want to know that because it is a noisy for me, or some other person will say this is important. This is a fact of the organization. I want to know it, but I don't want to spend a lot of time dealing with it because I say that, hey, this is something I can close. Now we give you fact. In the fact, now your responsibility is a certain thing is like your thing. I say that I don't want to monitor, I don't want to see it as an alert because I have to spend a couple of minutes dealing with it. Just give me a threat indicator. Whenever I want to look into it, I will look into it. So that's where it comes in over here. If you go into the platform is such a powerful things over here. If you go here, you can see trusted event. If you go over here, there are certain events, we will say that, hey, we have trusted it. So if I go over here, longer period of time, I'm pretty sure there are certain trusted events should be here. I don't see it, but looks like in our cases, people are not doing that. But what will happen is if you had a certain trusted event in there, it will show that, hey, these events are the trusted one out there. You know, let me see. So you can go ahead and create even a trusted event. So see all the events over here. Event type name. We'll show next time some trusted event. See, every IOC is happening in your environment is listed over here. So just to give you data upload, download, let's say data upload. If I go over here, now you are able to see which all the systems and the peoples who are doing the data upload there. That's right. So if I go over here, everything is being monitored. Now you can see that all the data upload which has been done in the organization is being monitored. Now it's up to you that certain things is being monitored and they are going to raise an alert certain things are learned, they are not going to raise alert, because all of these are not raising the alert because it has platform learns it and all that. So you can even give the platform a feedback that, hey, this thing is okay for my organization and don't worry about it, So those things also happen in the platform. Okay. And we will cover more in there. Next week, we will go through that little more details in there. Anjali, any question before we conclude? I know we have taken little more time than we had allocated.
No, Chandra, mostly they're asking about the data sources, what we said about threat intel.
Yeah.
Can we be able to share those data sources? That is what most of the team is asking about it.
Yeah, we will go through that the next week as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate everyone joining and staying a little late than we had planned. Next, we'll start promptly and go through the first niche framework, and then we'll go through the actual kind of like, hey, implementation, how it happens and what is happening around it as well, Anybody wants to add anything else before we conclude the call? Smith,
Chandra, I
yeah,
don't
go
think
ahead,
we have an
Anjali.
option. Chandra, I don't think we have an option to take the feedback in webinar of here. What we can do is, I think we can send the feedback form with a Google link to take the feedback from the team.
No, actually, there is a option to put some questions in there, as Tom was asking in there. I'm not sure whether you guys have embedded those, what you call this survey form. You
Mm-hmm.
can fill,
Survey
you
form.
can just do that and you can get a instant feedback from the team as well. I think we had gone through that one. Pushman, did you implemented that?
No, Chandra, right now, not yet. Actually, after the
We'll
meeting,
check
we
that,
will.
Chandra. Yeah.
Yeah, let's make sure next week we have that implementation so we can get whatever the Tom was giving, we can just put it in there and then people can also type. Okay.
Yes, sure,
Thank you,
Chandra.
everyone. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.